and register themselves. But suddenly, the market shifted. Everything could be registered. Everything could be organized in a different way. Everything was measurable, so to speak. And into the market came a lot of different middlemen. And all the middlemen, they want a little piece of the pie. So I would estimate that 50 to 80% of all the revenues that the publisher could actually make is ending into the hands and the pockets of the middlemen. And there are some people who want to take a big chunk of the pie. Nothing mentioned, nothing forgotten. So what it's all about is programmatic and LTP is to empower publishers to maximize the advertising revenue. But it's also about maximizing the potential value of the advertiser, otherwise it would make no sense. So both sides need to benefit. So cheer up, we think that the future is actually pretty bright. So automated trading, real-time trading. I need to step up here. I have a lot of notes that and you know it's moving so fast that I need to rewrite all the time. And by the way, everything that you see here on the screen and all my notes, I will send to IAB Bulgaria, and they will distribute it afterwards, so you can be enlightened about what is happening here. So, as you might be aware of, there's a little problem. And the problem is that if you look at Investor, BTV, NetInfo, all the other big publishers here in Bulgaria, they have a lot of inventory. They have a lot of ad spaces. And, you know, when the first banner got sold on Hotwire back in 1995, it was just a little GIF file, and it was fairly easy. There were not that many users. We just, you know, pasted into this page. We didn't really know it was HTML or what was it. And we distributed it to the users that we were using. But now, with all this inventory that we have in Bulgaria, well, there must be billions of ad opportunities. And in order to administrate an inventory that is larger than most individual sites have the opportunity to sell, I learned that a lot of publishers here sell maybe directly 30, 40% of their inventory to direct advertisers and media agencies. Then we need to find a way where we can handle it in a much easier way. And to do this, we invented real-time bidding. And as you can see here, the solution is like eBay, that you find what is interesting to you, you place a bid. If the price is high enough, then you win the bid, and the ad space is yours. So, thank you. That was hard to beat. Seriously. So, RTB, I think that many of you have seen some different acronyms like this: DSP, SSP, CPA, CPC. You may know that ad exchange, ad networks, yield optimization, and so on. Let's try to take it down to the ground and go through the definitions and try to understand what it is. So, real-time bidding is a relatively new method. So the number of human interactions here are very limited because it is automated. The trade, maybe you can see what's happening. With RTB, the publishers' advertising space will be traded in real time to the highest bid advertising, which means that it will happen in real time. It's not, you cannot pre-book. You cannot say, I want 1 million impressions here. So there's no guarantee. If you place the highest bid, you get the ad space. But you don't have any guarantee. Maybe in the near future you will use a new private marketplace opportunity, and you can actually agree with the publisher and the advertiser that okay, I will buy 1 million to this fixed price, and it will happen programmatic. But that's programmatic, and that is what we're going to talk about a little bit later. And the trade is programmatic, which means that it will happen on an ad exchange and enabled through a demand side platform. The supply side platform will handle it, and the data management platform will look at all the data. So let me draw a parallel to another business where this has happened before. Maybe you are aware of NASDAQ, and around the mid-90s, NASDAQ, they went all automated and real-time bidding, you could say. So there was a small number of people that were invited to participate in this kind of auction. And later on, well, it became mainstream, and now you cannot handle anything on the stock market but in an automated way. But as you can see, automation is not the same as the computer doesn't work. Automation is that we do it in an easier and faster and more effective, cost-effective way. It's like when the travel agencies, they went online. And you could book your flying tickets online. It was only for a limited number of travelers. In the beginning, it was last minute. And even though we did that in a very controlled way, you can also say, well, you could ask the pilot to put the plane on autopilot, and we wouldn't want everything to go fully automated. We would like the pilot to master the flight, so to speak. So let's look at the market players and the buying process. So compared to the public stock exchange, the publisher can enable all the ad placements on an ad exchange. And today we see a tendency that more and more publishers are enabling their remnant inventory. Remnant means the inventory that you have not sold. Maybe you could define what you have sold as premium, and everything else is a remnant. So they put it up on an ad exchange, and here everything can be made electronically. In order to, here are some of the players in the market, and maybe you know some of them. I also saw that e-target, no, you were not an ad exchange, you were PHP. So in order to place those intelligent bids, e-target over here has managed a DSP, some software that will try to locate the most interesting inventory, the most interesting ad placements. So you've been already introduced to the term programmatic, and this is actually the way the bidding process is handled. So through the DSP, the buyer look at the inventory and the users and the content and the ad sizes and the data points, and decide to make a bid on the ad exchange. So here are some of the DSPs that we are working with. These two are primarily in the Nordics, and these two are very international players. So they connect to some ad exchanges that are connected to the publishers. On the other side, we have the sellers, and they would have to be able to handle all the automated buying requests. So it needs to settle the rules, which is how they organize the inventory, what is the floor prices, so what is the minimum price that I would like to offer this inventory for. But it's also about the advertiser whitelist, because it can be that it's not all publishers who would accept all advertisers or all kinds of advertising categories. So they organize everything in a sell-side platform. So as a sell-side or supply-side platform is sort of yield optimizer for media, which yield optimization means that they are trying to get the highest possible price for every impression that they are delivering. It's also a tool to control which player they will sell to. It's about enabling media to establish the private ad exchanges, and So the private ad exchanges is where you can actually make an invitation only to selected advertisers. It's about fixing the minimum price, and it's primarily to handle the remnant inventory, but this will change in the future. We also see the rise of some private ad exchanges, maybe primarily in the Nordics. We have two companies like we have Meta, and then we have an international player like Nexus, which are organizing the private ad exchange, or the private marketplace, we call it. And here you don't see only regular inventory, but you also see premium inventory for sale. So this is kind of the programmatic sense. So now it starts to be a very complex eco environment for the buying and the sell side. And I will now introduce you to a new concept which is called trading desk. Don't worry, trading desk is just more DSPs working together. So media agencies don't always trust that this DSP that they're working with is the best. So they work with multiple, and they combine that into a trading desk. It is also here where they start working on data points, so data management platform, and this is all the information that they can see from the user in the cookie that the user has. Of course, we know that cookie is a relative concept because there's a lot of browsers that don't accept cookies, and there's also a lot of legislation about how you can use cookies. So we need to have a proper consent from the user that you may actually use this cookie. And I know that it might be a little bit of a problem to some of the DSP to actually live up to that. But they are working hard in order to follow the local legislation in all markets. So, first of all, data. It's about a new way of targeting the audience. So in the beginning, we had this website. It was quite easy. We know what the content on the website was, and we anticipated, well, if this is about sports, then it must be middle-aged men, 45 to 55, sitting in the couch, drinking beers, shouting if the team was losing, and then we can get a certain price for that. But over the last couple of years, we've seen more and more the use of retargeting, and now we see an increase in technology coming into play to reach the audience. It's not only retargeting, it's a vast number of data collection points. I'm going to come back to what kind of data collection points that you can actually use. So all these data points you can compile into some audience segments, and you can set it onto the market to be reused for targeting in exchanges and SSPs and PMPs. So the increasing problem here that many publishers are facing is how they can gain from external data points. They have the users, but they don't have the knowledge of all that the data points that the advertisers actually gathered around the user and is paying for it. So that was about RTB. Now it's about programmatic. And if you look at some of the statements here, you can see that managing display ad campaigns can take up to 28% of the budget in overhead, which and overhead means that that is the actual price for handling the campaign. So you can say that programmatic is especially important as we have serious issues with managing online campaigns compared to TV campaigns. And that means that a lot of the revenue that publishers should use to show the campaigns is actually ending up in managing the campaigns instead. And if TV is only using 2%, well, then they are better than online. And how come? How can it be that it takes up that many resources to handle a campaign, both on the buying side and on the selling side? if we look at what publishers, they actually think that are elements that can be replaced in the buying process and the selling process, you can see something like the insertion order workflow can be very cumbersome work. It is something like you have a fax or an email you send to someone to confirm, to look up in the system, is there any available ad spaces here? What other competing campaigns do I have here? Does the creative fit in? Then there's a billing, there's optimization of the campaign, where you need to look into all the campaigns if they are performing right, if they're delivering according to plan. There's the trafficking, where you handle all the creatives. There's the price negotiation from the salespersons. There's ad quality review, is this actually living up to our standards? And a lot of other stuff. And I'm already tired now, because it is a really long, tiring, cumbersome process that you need to go through. So this is why programmatic and streamlining the process is really, really important. Because imagine if you could reduce the cost. We just saw here before that actually 28% of the budget goes into managing everything. So what if we could use that for ad spaces? Publishers would be really happy about that. And if you don't understand, or if you don't trust me, this is actually a map of how a typical online display media work process would look like. And I'm sure that any one of you will fit in here perfectly, and you will have a nice interaction with each other. You will have a cup of coffee and enjoy life, and that's really nice, but it's not really cost effective, I'm sorry to say. Here's another example. This has been a really, really good process, because here is a $500,000 budget, but only 8% overhead cost of $40,000. But still, it's a lot of money. So, what is changing? We don't need sales anymore. Well, of course we need sales, but they're going to have a different role, and they've had more focus on target groups, on concepts, on premium placements, on annual agreements, on pricing. I recently talked to a Danish media agency. He was not that happy about this programmatic and IAB, because he stated that 80% of the current business was made on direct relationships. So why is he not happy? Well, because there's less wine and dine, less concert tickets, less all this and that the media agencies are getting from the salespersons. So we don't need the media agencies anymore. Well, yes we do, but the media agency should focus less on negotiation, because that will happen in real time, and more on media and check ad formats and report and find the right audience segments and so on. What about the apps and the trafficking, the ad operations? Don't we need them? Yes, but they will have a different role. Now they will be working as media planners. They will have focus on yield optimization. They will have focus on placements and conditions and what will be offered in the RTB environment. So managing the whole process. And what about advertisers? Yeah, we need advertisers, of course. So it's another form of media buying. It's about efficiency improvement. It's better and more advanced segmentation, and it's about, this is very important, it's about changes in competence requirements. But I learned that Bulgarians, you are very smart people. You have a lot of mathematicians and developers and so on, so I think you will be best of breed in programmatic, I'm sure. So, what are the challenges here? Because you cannot just go programmatic. You need to do all the hard work before you do the programmatic sales and buying. There are not many standards. You need to figure out what standards you can actually sell and buy on the ad exchange and the private marketplaces. The universal ad package from IAB, I can recommend. 728 by 90, 160 by 600, 300 by 250. Those are the most common. I have a little report I can show you in a little while. There's a very few suppliers of RTB and ad exchanges, huge consolidation within some of the major players. We can also see that Microsoft bought Nexus, Facebook has opened its own ad exchange, double-click ad exchange, and so on. So those are the major players. There's a relatively small demand so far. There's a huge question about data ownership. Who is owning the data, the publishers or the advertisers? Who should grant the access to find the data points and get and prosper from it? And then we have very limited transparency and content verification. Transparency is about what can I actually see when I buy something on an ad exchange. Because there are all the crooks and thieves and thugs and people that are very good at programming, and they can actually lure the advertisers into believe that their ad is ending up at a page that doesn't exist. So they're just cashing in all the money. So what is the learning about this? It is that you need to tell the advertiser that you can rely on me. This is a premium quality ad space that you actually is buying. Content verification is very important to an advertiser too, that the ad ends up in a brand safe place. So if you are Bulgaria Air, you would not have your ad appear together with the unfortunate plane crash from Malaysian Air the other day. You would do a lot of things to avoid that. And we need to have some brand safe environments so that advertisers can actually feel safe spending their money on programmatic. This is a little reminder again about the standard formats. This is from Adform, third-party ad serving and DSP provider in the Nordics. As you can see, 300 by 250 is the by far most dominant ad format. And then we have here the top banner, 728 by 90. And over here, the skyscraper 160 by 600. And if you really want to go into the very, very small formats and have very, very low revenues and find very, very few ad spaces, but you can just try to figure out if you want to do anything in all of these mentioned standard formats. So the key takeaways here is that automated buying and selling will have a much greater role in online media markets. It's also about buying audience is the future. You have a lot of data points that you can use in order to find your audience in the right way. It's about media buying will increasingly be driven by data to find the audience. And it's about validation, optimization, so you actually make sure that they appear on a quality website and it's very safe. So, what would I recommend? Comparing to TV advertising today, it costs about 10 to 15 times more to administrate. So, and deliver and report an online campaign, and too many resources being spent here. So, go programmatic as fast as possible. That's my recommendation. And I think that what would be essential to you here is that you sit down a task force with people who are interested in making this work together, produce some standards for the market, drive up more publicity about what is happening in the programmatic and OTB market. It's about making PR, what's happening, make certain that you can see the vendors in the market and enable your inventory as a publisher and buy some inventory as an advertiser. Programmatic has been handled in how much time do I have left? 50 minutes. In IAB US, they have actually done a lot of work on this standardization and standard guidelines and so on. And they've made some some definitions about what programmatic is and how it works. So it's about what type of inventory, if it's reserved or unreserved. It's about pricing, if it's a fixed price or if it's an option. If who's participating, if it's only one seller and one buyer, if one seller and few buyers, one seller and many buyers, and if there are other terms used in the market, and if there are other considerations. And if you look at the automated guarantee, you can see it's reserved inventory, it's fixed pricing, it's a one-on-one participation, and other terms are programmatic, guaranteed, premium, and so you can actually find this paper on IAB.com. Unreserved fixed rate, we have unreserved inventory, fixed price, one-on-one participation, preferred deals, private access, and first buyer refusal is also used as terms in the market. We have by invitation only option, which is unreserved, but it's a fixed price. It's one and few players. It's also called private marketplace, private auction, closed auction, and private access. And finally, we have the open auction, which is unreserved. It's fixed pricing. It's one to all players. And it's also called real-time trading open exchange and open markets. So these concepts you can read much more about at the IAB website. Other considerations here is for the public, what prioritization should this have in your ad server? Are you only working with the premium and rental inventory? It's about deal ID, and deal ID is a new concept that is winning place right now, where you can actually invite people to participate in an auction. It's about data policy. Data is crucial. It's crucial to have a policy about it. It's crucial to work with the national legislation and the recommendations from IAB Europe. You might have your online choices here in Bulgaria, or do you have your online choices? Okay, good. Then you're home safe. And it's about the transparency to the buyer, and it's about the price floors. So I can get a little bit more into detail about this. We can map it out quite easily. So if it's a fixed price and it is a reserve, if it's an auction-based and reserve, that doesn't exist. If it's fixed price and reserve, it's called automated guarantee. If it's unreserved and it's auction-based, it's either called invitation-only auction or an open auction. And finally, if it's unreserved and fixed, it's called unreserved fixed rate. So that was a concept. You can read more about it. It's quite boring. So let me just see what else here. I didn't skip anything that was important. So categorization of RTB, and this is actually where the goal is. This is the goal for the advertiser, and this is the goal for the publisher. Because a categorization of RTB means that you can either blind the inventory or you can leave it open, non-blinded. So if it's non-blinded, then you can see everything. This ad is appearing on this sport page. This section is about the local football team in Sofia or wherever. It's about the position. Is it a top banner? Is it a banner in the middle of the page? It's about the format. It's about what priority. It's also about what effect the categorization will have, because the more that you make public, the higher price you can get for it, because it's more worth. It's also about safety, that you're not ending on some website in China, which you didn't anticipate. It's also about other specifications like the content type, if it's mobile or video, the classification, if it's motor or travel, the rating, if you know anything about the target group, and other kinds of placement details and so on. So this is very tedious work, and it can actually be organized quite easily in some of the tools that are available for SSP. So this is an example where we have a news site in Sweden. So they just enter the site name, the URL, what kind of content category, and if you want to show it in an SSP platform, in this particular case it's Rubicon, show it to everyone or to some, and what name you will have displayed, and also some of the ad sources that can enter into this. Then it's about the ad sizes, it's about a lot of different stuff that you can enter. So in a very simple way you can actually automate all the buying to the advertisers. So, focus on data. How can data actually help advertisers, and how can it actually help publishers? First of all, you can do some behavioral targeting to show patterns describing the type of user. You can do some content recommendation to help users see relevant content and gain loyalty and increase the number of page views. You can do audience segmentation, so you can target the right user segment, you know, the middle-aged men, 40 to 55 years, doing beers and so watching football. And you can also go in and see the intent of purchase. Is this person in the market for buying travel, car, house, or whatever? So data is really, really important. So let me introduce you to some very, very interesting findings. We actually can see if you are expecting a baby. So this is a true story from God's own homeland, the US, where Target, a supermarket chain in Minnesota, actually sent out a direct commercial to a young girl who was in college. And her father discovered this ad and he was furious. So he went down to the supermarket and said, "What are you doing? Are you encouraging my daughter to become pregnant by sending her these kind of ads?" What he didn't know was that she was actually pregnant. So how did we know that? Well, it's quite easy. Once you figure it out, once you have your analysis department working on the concept. Because they figured out that when you're pregnant, there are specifically 25 different items that you start purchasing at a specific time in your period bearing pregnancy. And when one user starts to buy some of these products, the lamps in the marketing department start to glow. And they know that, okay, now we can start inviting this user or this customer to buy some more specific for pregnant women. And this has been done for a long time in direct mail. It has been done for a long time in supermarkets where you're building up loyalty concepts. So why not start using it on the internet? Because all the data is already available. And it's about what data is it that we actually see. Well, I have written a list here. We can see your age, whether you're married, have kids, which part of town you live in, how long time it takes you to drive to the store, your estimated salary, whether you moved recently, what credit cards you carry in your wallet, and what websites you visit. So we can also buy data about your ethnicity, your job history, the magazines you read. If you ever declared bankruptcy, about divorce, the year you bought or lost your house, when you went to college, and what kind of topic you talk about online, and all that stuff. And you know what? Facebook, they just went public with their data management platform. So all your social activity in Facebook, you can buy those data points as well. So this is a little bit scary. And now you know why that a lot of different things that you are thinking about socially also appears in the ad that is shown to you. And how come this happened? Well, if we look at all the data in the world, in 2003, it was about 5 exabytes. That's a lot of zeros. And, well, today, it's every second day we are collecting that much data. And all the data sources you saw on the page before, I traveled here, I bought a ticket. I didn't buy my hotel myself, but I logged in there so that I get yesterday store some data about it. And I bought some food somewhere, and they can track all my patterns online with MasterCard. And if I buy something on hotels online, they can track all that. And all these bastards, they are actually collecting all that data, aggregating it, and selling it to advertisers. So I'm an easy profile. So it's not whether, but how you could actually work with data. And I think it's about thinking from tactical. So if you look at tactical, you would say, I would generate a report with information that I have actually seen is happening with my users. And meanwhile, on the big motorway, everything is happening in front of you. And you are not operating with it in a transformative way. It's like when you're driving your car, and you're looking out the windshield, and you have this little rear view mirror where you're looking what is happening. It's really hard to navigate looking up there. Oh, there was a fire engine. Maybe there was a fire somewhere, and I didn't get the time to react on it. So it's about navigating in this data landscape and use the data in an active way where you actually set up some rules of how would I engage if I see data happening coming in this way. How can I avoid stuff? How can I benefit from it? And this is what the future will bring, also into programmatic. So, data policies. Learn about what data is aggregated during a campaign, both on the publisher side and on the advertiser side. It's about deciding who is to do what with the data before and after a campaign. It's very, very important that publishers, especially, they are very well aware about what kind of data they possess and how it's used afterwards in the campaign. It could be that some are sharing the data with others, and as a publisher, the users are your goal. And you should not release any data from your website to anyone without a prior consent, a written agreement about this is how we handle data, this is what we do with it afterwards. And remember the local policy always applies to the local legislations. So data can be used to your advantage, but it can certainly also be used to your disadvantage. So market update. This is my last 2 minutes, I think. What is happening out there? Well, it's a lot about audience buying because that is becoming mainstream. As you can see here, what is it that marketeers prioritize right now? It's a premium placement, about 20%. That matches pretty okay with the 30–40% of premium placement sales we have in Bulgaria today. It's about low prices, of course. I would also answer yes to that question. But it's about target audience reach and targeting capabilities. Those are the most important factors. And that is why enabling your inventory programmatically and enriching it with data is so key to the future of online advertising. It's also about, what we also see is that there have been made many predictions about what is happening when we shift to programmatic. And as you can see here, we have the indirect, RTB indirect buying, which is the open programmatic stage. And last year in October, eMarketer revised their forecast for RTB spend in the US, and the total in 2013 was $3.3 billion US, and that is a growth year on year on 75%. So the spend of online display ads is expected to increase by another 20% here over the first quarter. So it means that advertisers are investing more in technologies that will drive efficiency over the premium ad placements. This is Adform's DSP report where they are revealing the trends. They're not any actual numbers. As you can see from January last year up until October, there was a general increase. And then you can say, well, why isn't there no increase in November and December? That's because all the advertisers want to make sure that they get the direct ad placements and they don't have to buy any RTB. So that's direct sales that are affecting it here. Adform says that the ad spend in Europe is increasing rapidly on ITB, and it will, and it has quadrupled over the last year. That's actually what it says here. Then I have another slide here, which is essential for publishers, because this illustrates that if you put up premium content and ad placements in your own SSPs, you would see a far higher price for inventory than if you activate it on ad exchanges. And this is actually what happened in Denmark, where you can now find around 20% of all ad placements with the premium publishers are enabled in an RTB environment where they have connected themselves in a network. It is not fully, it is blinded network. You know it's premium publishers, but you're not aware where it will end up. It's a start, and the effect has been that the media agencies and the advertisers have started to buy programmatically. So, what does programmatic help? It helps yield optimization, reporting insights, also better frequency. You can actually plan your frequency and targeting users across different websites in a much better way. It helps set floor prices by buyer segments, and it gives you a good insight in what is actually happening with your campaigns on the different user segments and how you should price it. It gives you ability to manage guaranteed and non-guaranteed campaign, gives you ability to manage the content and to sell inventory in real-time markets, but also to sell inventory that was previously very hard to sell. So if you have something below the fold, well, it might be quite interesting if the user has the specific data carrying to become the right audience segment. And also being able to screen out certain buyers that you don't want on your site. So the summary here is that we have growing expertise in automated trading. We have very many direct sales channels in use. We can see there's a lot of publishers. I wouldn't expect that just a year ago, but many publishers have plans for using automated trading and starting to dig into it. And it's just about plunging into it and try it out. But they're very hesitant because they're not very skilled. They don't have the staff with the right skills. So it's about increasing your operational efficiency both on the sell side and on the buy side in order to figure out how to work with this and learn more and educate more. We see that retargeting is already established. RTB is, well, the advanced form of retargeting. We think that the MP and data will have a more dominant role when you start to aggregate more data. And this is not only about display, mobile and video advances. You can see here on this one. This is a forecast for the mobile programmatic. And I think that actually this is underestimated because you can see that in many markets, mobile is now exceeding display, especially to women who are pregnant, who only have one arm to navigate. And that's a really interesting target group, as we've learned before in the supermarket with the target. So, automated trading is a reality now. So that was all I had to say about that. Take a chance. So, any questions?
Имате въпроси на микрофоните, no questions on Twitter yet. Ако имате, може да е на живо, колкото с Twitter. Иван, там нещо имаш някакво време. Иван, не искаш ли да питаш?
Otherwise, I will stay up for another 2 hours.
Here we go.
I'm owner of an advertising network here. I'm sure you know publishers are very sensitive when it comes to pricing. So, can you give us an example for real-time advertising? I call it real-time advertising, not real-time bidding, because bidding is just part of real-time advertising. So can you give an example of real-time advertising without real-time bidding? Fixed prices, direct deals. And this is because on the local market it's more possible to handle than real-time bidding on premium conditions.
There are only a few players that are offering the technology for fixed pricing, but the term is called private marketplace. And what you can do is that, for instance, we have Adform in the Nordics, and what they do is that they, through their interface, organize that this publisher will sell its inventory at this price with these conditions. Maybe it can be the placement, maybe it can be the use of retargeting data, or maybe it can be the volume or the time of month or the time of day or anything else. So that is a very pragmatic way of using it. But we are seeing other players like Nexus and like Admeta. Admeta is also a Nordic player, which is already organizing auctions of the private marketplace between the publishers and advertisers. So it's a way of organizing it, not real-time bidding, but programmatic. So it's the, yeah. Does that answer your question?
That's all. You can answer later on Twitter if you want. Добре, благодаря много. Обедна почивка 1 час и сме ви до